Hello, students. I want to talk to you about the impromptu speech that you will be giving next week. So I'm going to remind you of what I told you about before. I'm going to give some additional recommendations about how you might choose this topic to speak upon, and then I will actually demonstrate what I would do if I were in your shoes. So back in week 3, I introduced the fact that towards the end of the term, you have to deliver a 2-minute impromptu speech with only 2 minutes of preparation. You might want to go back to Module 3.2 and view the second half of the video that is titled Second Intro to Module 3.2, starting at the 4-minute and 5-second mark. I gave you a quick demo of how I might give an impromptu speech about purebred dogs. You may recall that I said the two approaches to impromptu speaking are define and divide. And when I say define, I don't mean provide a dictionary definition. I mean what you'll do is you decide what corner or what angle of the topic you are going to address. Any controversial topic can be approached from a variety of different angles. So you want to tell the audience what angle you will be taking. For example, one of the topics is drinking on campus. You might address this from a health and safety standard, talking about the negative consequences of drinking to excess. Conversely, you might want to address it from a social responsibility angle, pointing out that about half of college-age students can drink legally and the other half cannot. Or you might approach it from the prevention and enforcement angle, pointing out that the rules at a given campus might be fair or unfair, well enforced or poorly enforced. So the define step is just an example of that first tell 'em of the tell 'em rule, or the organizational preview. You want to tell the audience where you're going to take them before you start taking them there. Next, you perform the divide step. That could be as simple as saying, I will tell you 3 reasons why the current policy regarding drinking on campus is both unfair and unenforceable. As far as deciding which of the 3 topics you will choose, if you happen to know a lot about one of the topics on your options, then that's great. You just pick the one that you know a lot about. But if you don't happen to know a lot about any of them, then you might want to choose the policy topic. That's the one expressed as a should question. Should rider require physical fitness courses? Should competitive athletes be subjected to random drug tests? Should professors be allowed to date college students? The reason to choose one of the policy questions is the fact that the question itself already provides you something of a structure to hang your speech on. And if you remember the form of the classical argument, you can then just go through each of the 5 steps and your 2 minutes will be up. For example, if I choose, should professors be allowed to date college students question, I could start with an attention getter such as this. Imagine how you would feel if you knew that your professor was dating one of your classmates. Do you think he or she would be graded just as fairly as you will be? I could then assert that I think it's a bad idea because of the potential for conflict of interest and the student dating the professor would get special treatment. I could then express an opposition argument such as this. The professor is bound by professional standards of ethical behavior, and the student is a consenting adult, so the university has no right to prevent these adults from dating whomever they choose. In our system, people are innocent until proven guilty, so both the professor and the student should get the benefit of the doubt. You could then counter that by arguing that the temptation to bend the rules could be just too great, and there is always the possibility that the power differential could actually result in sexual harassment, which is not just an academic problem, but a potential crime. Then you conclude by wrapping up your argument, reiterating your reasons why it should not be allowed, and end with some possible echo of the attention getter about how much better you might feel knowing that all the students were equal in the eyes of the professor. Also, since you're working against the clock, it would be a good idea to have a timer or stopwatch so that you know when your 2 minutes for preparation are up, and then you would know how you were doing in terms of fulfilling the 2 minutes of speaking that is required. Finally, you'll be happy to know that I use a fairly loose scoring guide, which you can see an image of here. You can see that the highest score is 12 points, and even someone who just rambles about the topic for at least a minute will get 4 points. Now, with no further ado, I will demonstrate what I would do if I were in your shoes by pulling out of this bag one of the topics. It has one of the sheets that has 3 topics listed on it. I'll be talking aloud in my 2-minute preparation period to let you see how my thinking goes. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is set my timer. I am going to pick out a sheet of paper. I now have 1 sheet of paper here, and I'm going to start my timer. And this gives me 2 minutes. So the first topic is nose rings. The next one is Vice President Mike Pence. And the next one is, should a college education be free to anyone who wants one? So the first thing I have to do is decide which of those topics. I'm going to go with the last one, should a college education be free to anyone who wants one? And I'm going to end up taking a positive position on that with some limitations, because some things like going to medical school or law school are obviously things that are very high in demand. And so what I'm going to say is that the people, certainly a 2-year associate's degree should be freely available at public institutions to anyone who wants one. And then after that, whether you have to pay for the remaining 2 years to get a bachelor's degree or any education after that, getting an advanced degree, since there are a limited supply of openings for students in medical school, you need to basically see to it that the people who get those are the ones who are most qualified. And we don't want to make having the money be sort of the qualification, but instead what we're going to do is we're going to say that having to pay something for something as valuable as a medical degree or a law degree is an incentive for those people who will be taking up those spaces to take seriously that obligation. And so I've used up most of my 2 minutes of preparing for this. I've got a few more seconds. And so let's see, have I got an attention getter? I think just the topic itself is probably pretty attention getting. So in a few seconds, I'm going to start my 2-minute speech, because I've used almost all of my 2 minutes, and here we go. So, should a college education be free to anyone who wants one? I think a free college education is a good thing for many people in many circumstances, but I'm going to put a few limitations upon it. First off, I think anyone who wants a 2-year associate's degree should be able to get that for free from the state in which they are a resident. Now, would you get the next 2 years for your bachelor's, completion of your bachelor's degree for free? And that, I'd say there's a good reason for it to not be totally free, because one of the things that happens is that people will value things that they have to pay for, and they're going to take more seriously the fact that they have something invested in it. And then certainly once you get beyond your bachelor's degree to something like a medical degree or a law degree, those end up being things that are highly valuable to the person who completes such a program, but they're also highly competitive. So there are not infinitely many spaces in medical school or law school. So I don't think those should be free. But I would say that for starters, someone who has finished high school and wants to get their associate's degree, that should be provided for free to the residents of that state by the taxpayers of that state. And that is something that has already started in the state of New York, and I think is going to spread to other states. As far as the next 2 years where you're completing your bachelor's degree, I think there's a good reason why the people pursuing such degrees should have to pay something, because their payment of some tuition is an incentive for them to take it seriously, to attend classes, to do as well as they can. Because again, those spaces, there's not an infinite number of spaces. So again, it should not be totally free, but anyone should at least get an associate's degree for free. Thank you. All right, so there it was. It was, I did it, oh, and I've got to pause that. There we go. Cancel. Dismiss. There we go. So, I think, I would have to go back and look at it and see what kind of a score I would get. But certainly I'm going to get full points for completing the time, because I took it full to 2 minutes. I'd say my delivery was pretty good. Not a lot of ums and hesitations. I tried as much as possible to, make eye contact with the camera. I think the content was quite good. I'm probably going to give myself 3 points for the content because I covered a lot of bases. The organization could have been better. I don't think I gave you a good tell 'em preview. I probably recapped it in the end. Okay, so I might give myself a 2. So I'm saying out of a possible 12 points, that might have been worth a good 11 or so. So there's an indication of what you might do with the 2 minutes that you have to prepare your speech and the 2 minutes to deliver it. And then what I will soon be doing is creating something in the conference section of Canvas, which is where you would be invited to log on and be there real time with me, where you see me and I see you, and that's how you deliver your speech. If that doesn't work for some of you, we'll figure out some other way whereby I am going to be able to witness within a real-time 4-minute space 2 minutes of your preparation, and then actually hear you give your speech for 2 minutes. So I will now pack this up and post it and share it with you.